I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're speaking with an amazing author. Her name is Rejoyce Zikpi, and she paints an intimate portrait of adolescence in a book called Diary of a Shy Girl. She explores the complexity of faith, love, and cultural identity against the backdrop of a strict Pentecostal upbringing. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put her in the spotlight today, and we ask viewers like you to support writers like her by subscribing to our channel. Good morning, Joyce. Good to see you today.
Good morning, Logan. Good to see you too.
Loved your book, Diary of a Shy Girl. What made you decide to write this book?
Well, Logan, it's an interesting story. Pretty much what happened was I had misplaced my childhood diary for a long time, and I just discovered it back in 2013. And when I read through it, I was really amused at some of the things I said. And so I thought, oh, well, I'm going to write a book, and I'm going to include the diary entries in the book. And so that's how Diary of a Shy Girl came together.
That's awesome. I'm jealous. I wish during any point in my life I had kept a diary or a journal, because there's been so much stuff that's happened over the years that you only remember this much of it. But by having a journal or a diary, it really, fills in the blanks and really brings you back. You knew what it was like to be a young girl again, and all those feelings that you had and all of the different explorations that you had. So awesome. I'm glad you found the diary. I'm glad you wrote this book. Tell us a little bit about the format of the book. For the folks at home, does it read like a diary or does it read more like a novel? Tell us about that.
Well, it reads pretty normal, just almost like any other book you would pick up, but pretty much this is how it's written. Each chapter opens up with just like a regular autobiography. I'm telling my story. And once I'm done with that, you're going to see the diary entries that follow, and it goes with what I said in the chapter. So it's very easy to follow.
Wonderful. Now, you were born and raised in the Bible Belt, I presume, in the South, in a strict Pentecostal home. Tell us a little bit about how that influenced your perspectives on love and life.
Well, I was raised in a Pentecostal home, that is correct, but I actually grew up abroad. And what my parents taught me, they taught me from the Bible from a very young age. That's all I could ever remember. And their love language was discipline. They believed that if you don't discipline your children, then you don't love your children. So that's how I learned what love was from my parents' perspective, is through discipline. That's how they show that they love their children.
Absolutely. Tell me a little bit about visiting your home country and what that was like and what you write about that.
Well, during my childhood, I used to go visit my country with my parents. We lived in Israel at the time. And during the summer, we would travel home. And that was usually the time that we would go to church. And visiting the church was a very interesting experience. The church was pretty much set up in a way where the men sat on one side and the women sat on another side. So I observed that interesting contrast. And I always wondered, and I would ask my dad questions about those things. And I also wondered if God loved men more than women, because the way I observed things in the church, I felt like the men always had the upper hand. So I asked my dad, why does God love men more than women? And he said, well, God doesn't love men more than women. And I thought, okay, but I wanted more. So I'm still searching for more answers.
As we all are. I think your life should be a search for answers, particularly when it comes to spirituality and faith, that we want to find out more, believe deeper, get closer to God. Now, important moment in your life, of course, was the loss of your father. Tell us a little bit about how that shaped your understanding of God and shaped your own beliefs as well.
Losing my father was something that really changed my entire life. It made me question my existence as well as my belief in God. I pretty much just withdrew from the Pentecostal church because I saw God. At that point, I was seeing God as a distant God. And I was asking why God would take my father away from me. So I lost my faith. I lost my faith in the Pentecostal church. And during that time, I actually went through a conversion where I became part of the non-denominational church. It was during that time that I actually drew closer to God and learned what it meant to have a personal relationship with God.
Interesting. How old were you when you lost your father?
I believe I was 16. I had just turned 16.
Yeah. It's a tough
Yeah.
age. I mean, it's always tough to lose your father. I lost my father when I was in my 30s, and it was tough. But the younger you
Yeah.
lose your father, the harder it is. It really is a life-changing moment, losing either parent, of course. So it's easy to understand why you might lose your faith, why you might get angry at God, and kind of blame him. Is that sort of how you felt in a way?
Yes, that is sort of how I felt, and maybe probably how you also felt. I didn't want to. We used to read the Bible in my language, and when my father passed away, I didn't want to read the Bible in my language anymore because whenever I looked at it, it reminded me of my father, and I was in grief and I couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
So yes.
So now that you're an adult, are you a member of a church? Do you still go to a non-denominational church? Have you gone back to the Pentecostal denomination? Tell us a little bit about your journey of faith.
Now that I'm older, I've been on a journey, believe it or not. I just started going back to church. It's not a Pentecostal church.
Mhm.
Um, I have not found out the exact denomination, to be honest with you,
Mhm.
but it seems to be kind of like a non-denominational. Um, they have missionaries, and I just started going back because I've been through a few things. And lo and behold, I'm back in church again.
Wonderful. It's got to be a good feeling. I was church going my whole life, haven't gone regularly in probably decades, unfortunately. But when I do go back to church, I do get a good feeling. And I do always tell myself, okay, I'm going to start going back to church. COVID got in the way, of course,
Yeah.
that kind of got people out of church. So do you feel reconnected to God now?
I feel like I'm taking the first steps of reconnecting to God. It's been a process, it's been a journey. I didn't even think that I was going to be back in church. But all of a sudden, I just had this sense that, like you said, I needed to reconnect. So I think I'm right there at the beginning, trying to reconnect back to God.
Great. Well, it sounds like you're on a good path and in a good space right now. Tell us about your book. Who is your audience? Who did you write it for? And what are you hoping to get from this book?
It's funny you ask because when I first wrote the book and I was asked this question, well, who is this book for? Who are you writing for? Pretty much I said everybody,
Mm,
because really that was my first book I ever published.
mm.
And I just thought, oh, everybody's gonna love this story. And I hope everybody does love it. But I would say first and foremost, it's for adolescents, teenagers, young people growing up, trying to find their identity, who they are, and what they want to do in life. I think it's going to be an interesting read for that category as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And part of being a young person, being an adolescent, is dealing with the struggles of expressing love for the first time. You wrote about this in the book, tell us a little bit for the folks at home about this part of your book,
About falling in love?
about falling in love and expressing it for the first
Oh,
time, and all those
okay.
wonderful feelings that we have and we're unsure of, and there's a conflict of religion, I'm sure, and all of that, right?
Yes. Well, he winked at me. And that pretty much did it.
Yeah.
But I used to get butterflies, and I really wanted to tell him, didn't know how to tell him. I told probably everybody else except him. And finally I said, actually a friend told me, you need to tell him. And so finally what I did was I wrote a poem.
Nice.
And I gave it to him. So that's how I told him about that.
Wonderful, wonderful. That first love is so amazing. It's so deep. It's so strong. It's so real. I remember my first love, just saying her name and talking about her with my friends was like magic. You know, you don't realize, you hear about love growing up and you have no idea what romantic love is until the first time you fall in love. And it's just like, wow, it's amazing, amazing. I don't think there's anything greater, anything better, anything more joyous. Do you agree?
Yes, well said, Logan. Well said.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, this book is well written. The thoughts are well said, and it is called Diary of a Shy Girl. It explores the complexity of faith, love, and cultural identity set against the backdrop of a strict religious upbringing. Rejoyce Zikpi has done a wonderful job. Like she said, this is a book for everyone. You'll learn about yourself. You'll remember your first love. And if you're just going through your first love right now, this will help you understand your feelings a little bit better. Rejoyce, thanks so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
It's been a real pleasure, Logan. Thank you so much.
I enjoyed it as well. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.